A big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video.
Morning everyone, fantastic to see you all again. So I recently hit 250,000 photos in Lightroom, which is bonkers. I've been taking photos digitally since 2000 for 24 years. And I've hit 2,000 photos. In fact, I think I've probably printed, I've got piles and piles of prints everywhere that I've done from all my videos. I've already printed most of those. I feel like I'm fairly decent photographer now, but I've not always been that decent. In fact, I've been looking back at my photos and some of them just aren't that great. I definitely tried hard, but didn't succeed. Some of the photos like this one, well, I think what I've done is I've gone to a location, I saw the mountain in the background, thought that looks pretty good, and then ended up having this mid-ground that sort of doesn't mash together. And then, or I went to Iceland, got a shot like this, but that I thought, well, I'm in a good location, it's gonna be a good shot, isn't it? All the conditions were good, like this one, and gosh, I don't know what I was thinking with the tree in the top left and this fence so close to me, but anyway, my photos have improved, and during that improvement process, I've discovered a few things, and I thought it'd be really good to sort of summarize those in a video, hence this video. And what I'm going to talk about is things like composition, because I think that's really important, using light, I think that's super important. Camera, I've got an old camera like this and my box of a Z8 here, I'll talk about that later as well, and some camera tips, because I think, you know, understanding how to use your camera is really, really important. And at the end, I've got a really important tip as well that I'll share that I think is probably the most important tip of all the things that I've learned over the last 24 years and 250,000 photos. Okay, on to the first tip, and that is 4 things for a good photo. I've done a video on this before. I'll link it here, and it's the 4 things which are light, composition, subject, and timing. Those 4 things are really important. I learned this probably, I don't know, 10 years ago. I should have learned it earlier, but I'm a bit of a slow learner, so I learned this about 10 years ago, and I did a video on it. And those 4 things are really important. If you just have 1 or 2 of them, it's not great. So quite often I'd find a great subject, maybe I liked a wall or a tree or a barn, or I'd go somewhere and I'd see an amazing mountain, but I'd go there at the wrong time of day. Or there's some great light, but I wouldn't have any subject. Or there's a great light and subject, which is probably what most people end up doing, and then they think, oh, I've just messed up. I should have done better with that amazing subject and that amazing light, but I didn't. And that's usually composition, you know, how you put it all together. So let's go into those in a bit more detail. Subject. Again, I'll go back to the first photo I just showed you. This was taken, I think, in about 2003, something like that. And this is Shetland Slough in the background, a hill near me. But I saw the wall and I thought I should have the wall in as well as the mountain. But I didn't really know how to put the wall in. And then I ended up with this massive bit in the middle that doesn't work. So you don't really know whether the subject's the wall or the mountain. Whereas this photo that I took in Yosemite, it's obvious the subject is the tree, and that's what makes, you know, the photo. The light coming through is the cherry on top as well, because obviously subject and light, composition, all those things work really well. Sometimes in woodland photography, like this shot here, the subject's not just one tree, it could be multiple trees, and then it's how you combine those subjects together, the composition part, that are really, really important. Light, I used to shoot in light like this in Iceland. I went there in 2002, and I used to shoot in not the most optimal light. It was either blue sky or it was raining, or I don't know. Rain is often good and blue sky can be good, but I just didn't use them to their full potential. I didn't know how to use light at the end of the day. Or I had really good light, but I didn't really know how to use it, so I ended up getting shots like this where there's no obvious subject, coming back to subject again. When you start to know how to use the light, then you can, you know, find a good location, think about when the light's going to be good for that good location. So the sunset on this particular location looking over Buttermere, I knew that the light was going to come down from the left-hand side here. I knew there was going to be some overcast clouds as well that were going to help and create that bit of a stormy. I got soaked going to this. Or it could just be subtle light like this, where there'd just been a sunset, it was just catching the clouds, and you use the tonalities, those orange tonalities and the black sand to create this really sort of duotoned image that looks really, really nice in a land that time forgot here. This is one of my photos from about 2017 or 18, I think. And composition, I struggled with this for a long time. I feel like I'm getting there now, but I'm still learning lots. But I used to take shots like this, where again, I had that subject, I had that amazing light, all those conditions, but I just couldn't put it together, and I you know, this is not great. I've got this bright area, there's a top right, it's a bit too bright. But then, you know, in this shot of the lake with the fallen tree here, it all fits together. I've just thought really carefully about where I want the barn, where I want the stick on the right of the tree, where the shadows are casting. All those things are really important to create this visually compelling image, and that's what composition does, really. And then timing, well, you think, what's timing important? Well, timing is important for many reasons. The obvious one is if you're at the ocean and things are moving, or if anything's moving, waiting for those things that are moving to be in the right spot. So in this case, a wave, wait for a good wave. It then relates to the cliff in the background, and I get this stunning shot. I took about 1,000 of those 250,000, probably getting this one shot. Or you could get timing where on the black sand beach here in Vic, really dangerous beach, by the way, so you shouldn't go down to where the sand's wet from the water going over it, because you could get a creeper wave and people have died there, so be careful. But in this case, it rained really hard, all the sand was wet, and I could use that wet sand and the light shining on it to create this amazing bokeh in the foreground here and create this really visually compelling image. So timing in that case was really important. So it's thinking about what's happening, when's that going to happen, and how can I use that in the image that you're sort of starting to visualize in your head. So this all sounds complicated. And you think, I'm going to have some natural ability in this. And it leads me to the next tip, which is you do not need natural ability. I am a strong believer in that, because I never had natural. You can see those early photos of mine, and I started doing black and white photos in the dark room and on film. Whoa, some of those are just so bad. I definitely am not naturally artistic. I've learnt it. I'm a scientist. That's how I trained as a scientist. And I've just learnt to be more creative. And I think that's because I love creating things. I like going out and exploring nature. And because I like exploring and creating things, I do a lot of it. And then you slowly just get better by failing more. But you can learn how to see things better. I promise you that. You know, I've done loads of videos on how to do all that. I'll link some of them in the description below. Any videos that I'm talking about on here, there'll be either links up here or links in the description below for all those videos as well. And you can learn how to do that, and you can improve your photography by doing things like the next tip, which is understanding your camera. Now, you may have a really old camera, like this one here. This was my D200. Doesn't matter what camera you have. The camera you have is irrelevant. It just doesn't matter to photography. You might think it matters. It may matter if you're doing wildlife photography and you've got to track the bird or whatever, but I'd argue that even that, you know, there's some amazing wildlife photos from 20 years ago. It's a little bit easier to take wildlife photos now, but for landscape photography, when nothing's moving, you're really spending your time composing the image. So the camera might look, when you pixel peep, to be digitally better, but what makes a good photo? Light, timing, composition, subject. It's not camera. The thing that is important is you understand how to use your camera. What I would recommend is that you understand, first of all, the exposure triangle. So you understand the aperture, the ISO, and the shutter speed. I did a video on this a little while ago. Again, link in the description below or up here. And understanding those is the first fundamental. So you understand how they impact creativity in your image, which is important, and also the exposure of your image. Then I would recommend take your camera, and this has got a lot of dust on it. Take your camera and just put it in a bag or close your eyes and just try and do the things that you need to do. You should understand intuitively where all the buttons are, and the way you do that is muscle memory. So you just need to practice a lot. What I recommend is just going into your garden, shooting your kids, your dogs, going on walks. Just don't worry so much about the photo. Think about things that you can play about with your camera until you get to the point where you understand your camera inside out. Because you don't want to be using your camera and figuring it out, like how to maybe bracket a shot, which is a really useful thing to know, by the way. When you're in location. There's been so many times when I've been on workshops, for instance, where I've been helping people out, they've not known how to use the camera. It may be not a camera I'm familiar with. We've spent 5-10 minutes trying to figure it out. By that point, the sunset's gone, or you know, whatever's happening has changed, so you've not got that timed moment exactly. That's important. Okay, on to the next point. This is so important. Long shots are easier than wide shots. I've always thought that landscape photography is about wide angle photography. I love wide angle photography. I do it all the time. Find a print here. Here's a print from not too long ago on the East Coast, wide angle shot. I love taking foregrounds, but it's really hard. It's the hardest type of photography because if you think about it, when you're taking a wide angle shot, you've got to try and get everything in the frame that's in front of you. And you know, if you're doing 14mm, it's pretty much 180 degrees in front of you, not quite, but it's like a massive angle in front of you. And so small movements make such a big difference when you've got a wide angle shot. You might want to go a foot lower or a few inches to the left or the right just to get that foreground right, have less mid-ground. It might make a difference with the trees coming in, how they're going to interact with the background. It's so much more complicated doing wide angle photography than it is long lens photography. So what I'd recommend is get a 70 to 200mm lens and just go out and try and pick out things, because you'll just find better photos, because a good photo is as much as what you leave out as what you put in that photo. So just think about that. I'll give you an example here. So this is a shot that I took when I was with Mass in the Lake District. Believe it or not, Mass ran all the way down to the end here and posed. It's not like Mass to do that. I know he doesn't like taking photos of himself, but he stood there in his pose. So I thought, okay, rather than do a long shot, I'll do a wide shot. And I was messing about with my camera trying to find out the grasses. I thought there's some light on the grasses, they'll be good. Thinking about where I'm going to place Mass, because I wanted to get him right in the background. Then I thought, okay, the rest of the background will take care of itself. I didn't think about that too much because I couldn't change it too much with a wide angle shot. By the time I'd done that, Mass had moved. Adiac, Mass hadn't moved. He'd stayed standing there as in a pose all day, wouldn't he? But yeah, it took me a long time to get that right. Whereas a long shot in that same scene, believe it or not, these are the long shots that you can get. There's on the bottom middle left, there's a wider long shot, so about 100mm of this road leading into the amazing mist here. Or you can go a bit tighter and go on that road a little bit more, and there's a tighter shot, a better long shot there. And then on the top right, there's these mists and the trees just coming out of the mists and the hill. And then in the top left, there's these trees just really coming in and out of the mist, looking amazing. I love this image. They're all taken with my 100 to 400mm lens. And it was much easier to take those shots, and I probably could have found another 50 shots with that long lens. Whereas finding wide angle shots, you've got to really, it takes a long time, you've got to think about it, and more often than not, you end up getting something where it's just a lot of nothing and there's no real focus point. I find with wide angle shots, you need to find something where there's a real focus in that foreground, like this shot here of the rocks in Madeira. Anyway, if you're enjoying this video, can I ask you a massive favor? Can you give it a thumbs up? If you give it a like below, then it means to YouTube, the algorithm, that more people will see it. And if more people see it, then I get more views. That helps me out massively. And it encourages me to do more videos, which is good for everybody else. So it's a win-win for everybody. And the other thing is, only 50% of the people watching my video are subscribed. And when I get to 500,000, eventually I will, I'm going to give away this Z8. And if at the rate I'm going at the moment, Nikon have released a new camera. You can see that it's quite dusty. So I've had this a few months, but I will give this out when I get to 500,000. I think we're about 15,000 away. If everybody that watches this video that's not subscribes to it, will not be far off 500,000. So please consider doing that. Thinking about sharing, we're all sharing. Sharing's so useful in photography. What I used to do was go to a camera club, and I met some people there that I used to go out and do some photography with. This was in my film days, and I absolutely loved it. It helped me learn a lot about photography. I had fun doing it, and it meant when I was going out, I wasn't going out on my own, I was going out with other people, so I was more likely to go out more often. But you don't have to join a camera club, just have a photo buddy, somebody that you can ask, what do you really think of this photo? Or just post your photos on Instagram or Facebook or X, maybe not so much, but Instagram and Facebook, because people there are usually really friendly, and if you ask for critique, you'll get some feedback. And I think asking for critique about your photos is a great way of learning, so think about that. The other thing that you need to think about is your website, because sharing your photos on your website is the best way to do it. And you know what's coming? This video is sponsored by Squarespace, and they're a fantastic platform for building your own website. Squarespace have got a new tool, Squarespace Blueprint, which is an AI tool which helps you build your own template, your own website using AI. It means that not only do you get a fantastic looking website and you can do it really easily, you can just supply it with photos and some text and it can really help you out with all the design aspect. It also helps you with SEO, so it means that more people can discover your website. So you're creating a website with your photos where you're in control of it, and more people are going to be able to find it. And if you want to sell your photos, Squarespace also links with other commerce platforms, printing platforms, that you can go and maybe print t-shirts, print photos, whatever you want to do, you can do that by integrating it with other platforms in Squarespace. So I'd really recommend that you go and check it out. There's a link in the description below. You can get 10% off using offer code Nigel, or go into squarespace.com/Nigel. Okay, the next one, and this sounds so obvious, but it's getting out. Rules over everything else. How many times have you looked out of the window and seen a sunset and thought, why am I not out with my camera? Well, I've done it quite a lot. I've done it this time, and this time, and this time, and this time, and another 50 or 60 times like that, where I've just got my phone and gone, oh, there we go again. There we go again. You're not going to get a good photo if you stay at home, and there's no excuses for not going out. You can go a little bit earlier to work. You know, just get up an hour or two earlier. You'll remember the hour you have with your camera in that epic light much more than you're going to remember the hour that you're asleep in bed. So really think about getting out and taking your camera with you a little bit earlier, or going out in the evening. It's hard, I understand that. And it's even harder when you're thinking there's nothing to shoot, but there's always something to shoot locally. There's always, doesn't matter where you live, you'll find something to photograph. If you go out in the golden hour, things will start to look different. There'll be whatever. If you're in Texas and there's it's really dry, then use the blue sky, find a red building and do something like that. There's just so much you can do. I've got a place close to me called The Cloud. It's just near Congleton. Amazing place. If you're up here, go and check it out. It's a short hike up to the top, and I've taken so many photos. I've taken photos in snow. There's a tree on the way up there I've taken. You've probably seen that. I've taken photos of sunset, of sunrise, of inversions. I've been up with pebbles. There's so many photos I've got on The Cloud, and it is an amazing, amazing place, and it's only 10 minutes away from where I live. When I first got here, I thought, oh, there's nothing like the Faroes or Iceland or Madeira or the Dolomites where I live, but it doesn't matter. There's always something brilliant to photograph. Just get out. Okay, on to the final point. I said there'd be a really important point at the end, and you're going to say, oh, that's not that good, but I'm going to explain why it's so important. Simplicity is key. The best photos are the simplest ones. That's why with a long lens, it's easier to get a good photo, because you're simplifying the scene. It's more important, as I said before, to leave things out than to put things in a photo. And that simplicity could be around colours. So like a land that time forgot here, that's all about the colour palette is really simple. There's repeating patterns in this photo which make it really simple. There are lots of triangles in this photo. The foreground's very, very similar, so it makes it really simple. This photo is just of these trees that I showed before. It's really, really simple. They're just coming out of the mist. This one of the two trees, again, there's repeating patterns in the background, and the two trees just stand out from the background in a really vivid, dominant way. So you really want to try and look for simplicity in the landscape. It could be that things are a little bit more complicated and you want to put something in the foreground to, to change that. Like this tree here, the foreground heather wasn't working. It was sort of a bit patchy and I couldn't find a good photo. So I just went down and used that heather as bokeh to create a more simple image. Or the wave, I just focused in because the actual surrounding where these waves were wasn't pretty spectacular. So I just zoomed in a bit and just got the simplicity of the wave breaking and the really nice textures and colours of that as well. But sometimes things are a little bit more complicated, but then it's focusing on the simplicity of the objects in there, and that could be timing. So these penguins in Antarctica, I just waited for them to wander along and look back at the hut. This was them saying goodbye to the people in the hut, farewell, and I just love, again, the simplicity of the shot. It's 3 penguins and a hut, really, and everything else I tried to get away. There's other penguins going on. There was lots of penguins walking across, and I could have just not waited for these 3 penguins, but I waited about 20 minutes, got this shot, and it's a super simple shot. If you've enjoyed looking at this video and watching this video and you want to improve your photos, then I've got a composition ebook that I did last year. It's over 100 pages. I've had some amazing feedback from it, as you can see here. And it's really useful tips for improving your composition, because I realise when I was putting this together that composition is the thing that most people find difficult. I'll put a discount in the link and a link below for it. For anybody that watches the video. And also, if you want to get any more depth and you've not looked at my masterclass before, I've got masterclass 1, which is for beginners, 2, which is for intermediate, and they are me on location a little bit, in the studio a bit, going into depth of how to edit, print, find compositions, go and take photos, the techniques around cameras, what cameras to buy, all those sort of things. Again, a link in the description. Thanks for watching, and until next Sunday when I'm in my camper van, bye.